Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. We are your hosts and hopefully your new bookish pals. I'm Hannah MacDonald.
And I'm Lydia Clare. Welcome to a special bonus book episode where we have the incredible opportunity to chat to Holly Bourne all about her new novel, You Could Be So Pretty. In Belle and Joni's world, there are two options for girls. 1, follow the rules of the doctrine, be a pretty, apply your mask, win admiration and work hard to be crowned at the ceremony, be a Belle. Or 2, fight the rules, be an objectionable, leave your face bare, be sneered at, and work hard to one day escape, be a Joni. But maybe there's a third option. Change the rules. Reclaim your power. If you could, what would you choose?
Holly Bourne is a British writer of young adult and contemporary fiction. Holly started her career as a news journalist, where she was nominated for Best Print Journalist of the Year. She then spent 6 years working as an editor, a relationships advisor, and general agony aunt for a youth charity. Inspired by what she saw, she began writing teen fiction, including the award-winning Spinster Club series, which helps to educate teenagers about feminism. As well as this series, Holly has written 11 other novels, a mix of young adult and adult fiction exploring mental health, societal pressures on women, relationships and body image. Alongside writing her best-selling books, Holly has helped create online apps that teach young people about sexual consent, works with Women's Aid to spread awareness of abusive relationships, and runs Rethink's Mental Health Book Club. As Dolly Alderton puts it, Holly Bourne is doing God's work. To talk about her latest young adult novel, You Could Be So Pretty, we have Holly with us today. So welcome to A Pair of Bookends.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. That made me blush.
I told you.
This bio's not ending. Honestly, you're a woman of many talents.
100%.
I've been in this game a long time. I'm just old.
Honestly, I was writing this bio out and I was like, oh my God, I am actually like in awe of everything that you've done.
Yeah.
It's so incredible. You know, a lot of people can write about these really huge, important topics, but not many can put these things into practice. And you're clearly doing, you know, a lot of incredible, powerful work that I imagine is helping so many young people out there. So thank you for doing all of that. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't know. I just like, to me, it's just a lot of time sitting on my arse in my pajamas.
It doesn't sound like it.
It's like when you read that out, it's like that is just many hours on my ass in pajamas like that. It's like, so it sounds really impressive.
I love
it. Behind the scenes, what needs to be done in order to achieve is so unimpressive to watch.
Please keep sitting on your ass because you're clearly doing wonders. Brilliant. We always love to start our podcast by asking my favourite question, which is, what are you currently reading?
I've literally just finished it yesterday and it's I'm a Fan. It's deranged.
I finished it maybe 2 weeks ago and I loved it so much.
It's just, I don't know, like she is just balmy, like the narrator. It's like a woman who's basically having an affair with a married man who's also having an affair with lots of other women. And she's like obsessed with one of the other women. And it's basically her just like deep stalking this woman's Instagram account. And it's all about like, and that's just all it is. It's just her just like hanging around outside. It's so uncomfortable to read because it's called free soloing, where you go really deep in somebody's Instagram and you're like, what if I accidentally click like? Somebody's like, oh my God, I'm hanging out in my 2050. We've all free soloed.
100%.
Yeah.
Just like the way she's put it into words, and it's all written in like these really short chapters, like their Instagram. And it's so good on like abuse and class and race and parasocial relationships. It's so good.
So good. Yeah. And it's so short as well. Like you could easily inhale that in a day. Like it's.
I think I did.
It's good. Yeah, I'm a new-ish mum, so short books are like my jam.
I can imagine.
Makes me feel like I've achieved reading a book, you know, because it takes about 5 times as long as it used to.
Yes.
I would also really recommend, I don't know if you've listened to the podcast yet, but Sarah Pascoe and Carrie Lloyd's new podcast is called like the Weirdo Book Club or something like that. And they have an episode dedicated to I'm a Fan. And I think it's with, is it Nish Kumar?
Yeah.
And they have an episode with him and it's great. Like it's so good. And they've put a deep dive into it.
Sorted. I love
Yeah.
stomp around the block.
It's so good. So good. Yeah, I loved it so much. Lydia, you weren't as much of a fan though, were you?
Well, no, not as much of a fan, only because I think the format for me I struggled with. I think I always it felt like it could be just a series of essays. It was making some fantastic points, and I just sort of wanted to learn more about it, and she didn't give me enough, I think. But that's because I'm greedy and I like lots of information.
Yeah. And also it's also very literary, and I'm quite a commercial writer, and it's a choice you make and it's a training you have. So I always read it with complete jealousy that they just write such perfect sentences and stuff. But there's also just part the commercial writer in me is just wants to get my red pen out and be well, that's an unnecessary description and that's going on. Yes. And so I always have that when I write literary fiction. I have this mixture of I wish I could write like that. So right, where's my red pen? On the road. So I don't tend to read much literary fiction, but I think the fact that this was short really helped. I was I read a literary book and it only took a week. It's great.
It is great, and I think it'd be a great I don't know, Hannah, whether you agree with this, but a great train book. A commuting book, if you're on the way to work and you think, oh, I need a really good read that I can dip in and out of, it's great for that. It's really good.
Yeah, great.
Now I think it's time for us to get on to your book, which we're very excited to chat about. So firstly, to start off with, I want to find out about the inspiration for You Could Be So Pretty. At times it reads like a dystopian novel, but so much of it can be applied to a reality that women and girls face globally. And I would love to know where this story started for you.
It was the plan was always from the start, because I've only ever written contemporary teen fiction, it's about real life teenagers sort of living in the real world. This to me is no different. It's just I chose to write it using dystopic language to sort of make a quite heavy-handed point, which is I think the pressure that young girls are under is dystopic.
Yeah.
And in the post, and so when I kind of pitched it to my editor, I was we kind of pitched ourselves it's the beauty myth for teenagers, but it also deals a lot with porn culture and the sort of normalization of sexual violence and education and stuff. And I was I want to write it as a dystopia, but it's not. And one of the things that was really interesting / depressing about the editorial experience is sometimes be I actually don't think things are this bad, considering they knew that. And I would be really sorry, and I'd have to send over some research, and they were just oh God. So it was really fun to use the generic conventions of dystopia and to come up with all the different language and the words. So it was using the generic conventions, so some sort romance and this kind of wider framework and language changes and this kind of small cast in a sense suffocation and the world building. But it sadly could be everyday life for most teenage girls, in the Western world. So it's a bit of a bummer.
How do you decide when something you're writing is going to be better suited to young adult audiences?
It's all to do with the storyline, I guess, or the themes. And I think I spent sort of, as you said in your intro, I spent 5 years working with young people, and which was just, gave me huge insight into the youth experience, as it were. And there's so much to write about. But I also do quite enjoy writing adult, because you can just get away with a bit more in adult fiction. You don't have to worry so much about safeguarding, although I do worry about safeguarding in my adult fiction too. But in my teen fiction, we hire in a psychotherapist to go through each line to make sure that everything is as safe as possible, to not put things on page when they don't need to be on page, all that sort of stuff. Whereas with adult, you kind of, can trust adult readers to read the trigger warning at the start of a book and maybe look after themselves a bit better. And you can have more unlikable characters, I think, in adult fiction. Teens are a little bit more why is this person not very nice, and gets not fun. But yeah, it's just weird to me, the process of deciding to write a novel. I wish I knew and understood how and why I do it, because I always panic. What if this idea, this strike of inspiration never happens again? Because it is quite magical, and the idea lands in my head, and I know if it's an adult book and I know what it's about, and I've got the first line, that's always my strike of inspiration. It's the opening line. And so for You Could Be So Pretty, it was I'll never forget the sound of my mother's scream, and you kind of instantly know it's teen then. And so if the book decides for me, if that sounds wanky, just
No, not at all.
That's what you tell me.
No.
Hey, I'll write you. Thanks for giving me this idea.
I didn't realise that there was a process where you bring somebody in to check things in terms of safeguarding and stuff. That's really interesting. I didn't even realise that was a thing, but it makes complete sense, especially with the topics that you're tackling, that you would need to do something like that. But yeah, I didn't. Is that a process that has to be done across the board, do you know? Or is that just something that you're keen to do with your books?
I'm not sure how many other authors do it. I think it's because I worked with young people for so long and about quite dark issues like mental health and sexual violence and stuff. I've just had such thorough safeguarding training, it's like, because obviously that's the backbone of, working with vulnerable young people. And once you've had that kind of very rigorous, very depressing, very terrifying training about what triggers somebody, or, you just don't want to harm anybody. And so I think I sort of started saying to Osborne, my publisher, kind of going, can we get somebody to check this? I'm always quite confident that things are safe because of the safeguarding training. So I know what to leave on page, what to leave off page, like when descriptions would be dangerous, all that sort of stuff. They've got somebody who I think has worked with us for a number of books now who will sometimes be like, oh, have you considered this? Or sometimes if there's therapy in a book, they're really quite good at being like, oh, that's not actually how the therapist wouldn't say that. So yeah, so it's something I take incredibly seriously and I'm really vigorous about. But I try not to judge others, but things have got better then. Teen fiction wasn't a really bad place 10 years ago for safeguarding. It's definitely got a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important, especially with a book like this, that you can feel confident with your child or with your teenager reading it and knowing that, they're in safe hands, but they're going to learn about some pretty tricky topics, but in, quite a safe space. I feel like it's really important that teenagers nowadays have somewhere to go where they can sort of be exposed to these things, but in a really safe environment, because a lot of the other outlets that they have to learn about these things are not safe and are not safeguarded in any way.
Exactly. I do think that people who work in children's publishing are quite earnest and very well-meaning and really care about young people. And so a book, and there's quite a lot of gatekeeping involved, like a librarian wouldn't put a book in a school library if they, thought it was really bad. So it is safe. With that said, because this book in particular dealt with porn culture, it was the most aggressive edits I've had in terms of what I could and couldn't say. And we had 2 sensitivity readers as well. And it was fascinating just how people don't want to talk about pornography and like porn culture and to children, because if you're under the age of 18, you are legally a child. And it is really hard to be like, this is the most chaste YA book I think I've ever read, like I've ever written, even like barely anything happens, but because it was just even dealing with the pressure of porn, like it's very off page. They're still like, oh, we're not sure about this. To me, it was an important process to go through, but so frustrating because I'm like, they're watching it at 11, guys. Like it, by the time they're reading this book, they would have watched so much really upsetting pornography. Like they need to talk about it. They need spaces to talk about it and be allowed to be like, what if this scares me? What if I don't want to have sex like this? What do I do with this pressure? And so I had to kind of really fight for a lot of it. And again, it's like, I think something about that particular issue, people just don't want to think about porn in teenagers. I get it. I don't like to think about it either, but it's just so important we talk about it. And in a book where if you're like, oh, this is a bit too heavy, you can put it down. And something just so much safer about a book, I think, than just watching something and you're like, oh, I just saw something that's really upset me. It's too late to take it away. I feel like with a book, you kind of can hurl it across the room.
Put it in the freezer. Put it in the freezer.
Freezer late.
What? What scares you? Yeah, Joey from Friends took it in the freezer and just forget about it. It never happened. Yeah, right? Not bad. Put her in the freezer. It never happened. It's the best way to deal with it. Bury your head in sand. One of the things that I really love about this book is how much it's centered on beauty and the concept of beauty and the sort of power that can come with looking a certain way. And it brings to mind, like you were talking about, the revelations in like the beauty myth and, some of the latest kind of documentaries that I've been watching that are really fascinating on beauty itself. But it's a great premise. why do you think that we still have this fascination with beauty and power? And despite there being like, our awareness is a bit better, I would say, or we're a bit more aware nowadays of, you know, filters and makeup and what it can do to you. But yet we still aspire, a lot of people aspire to look a certain way and to, you know, there's so much societal pressure to be perfect.
And I think I reread The Beauty Myth, which like for the first time since uni when I was studying this book, or when I was writing this book and researching it. And it was so much has changed since I was a student. So I'm 37, 8, I don't know now. We stopped counting after a while. And so I must have been reading that in 2005. And so obviously fourth wave feminism hadn't occurred in 2005. And one of my adult novels girlfriends was all to do was just like how fucked up it was to be a young girl. Coming of age in the noughties where like Stan was Christmas number one, you know, just like a pregnant woman being murdered was like Christmas number one. Like what? You know, we're all doing the special K diet, like just, you know, this. And so like feminism has obviously come about again in its fourth wave since then. And what really struck me when I was reading that book, and I know that book is not perfect and misses lots of really important things about like race and intersectionality, and also Naomi Wolf is gone to a bad place with her views and like vaccines and stuff. But like the message said that like the more rights women get, the higher society, like the more pressure on beauty will exist, and it's deliberate. And it was so interesting looking at how far I've come with my feminism since I first read that book, but also just how much higher beauty standards have gotten since this fourth wave. And it's so hard to talk about this without objectifying myself or objectifying others, because even commenting on a woman's appearance and objectifying her, so it's a nightmare. But it's like feminists are all quite hot, like they are. You look at the Women's March, you're like, everyone there looks lovely.
Yes.
We've all got our red lipstick on and our skinny little arms sticking out of these like shirts. And I remember as a student, on a night out, you would put on like eyeliner and a nice top and some jeans. And, you know, I think we only ever curled our hair for like the ball, you know, and now it's years heatless curlers every night in bed. So you can wake up looking like you have a perfect blow dry, and it's fillers, it's preventative Botox, it's filters as well. It's have this red lip stain so you can wear it all day. It's eyebrow, you know, microblading. Like it used to be plucking, and then it became waxing, and it became the threading, and now it's micro, and it's just like and now it's like these nails that you get done, and you literally cannot get the nails taken off without also going back to the thing. And it just seems like the pressure, like we've had all this awareness and we're having some laws go in our favor, and yet we rarely see a raw human woman's face. Ever. I think all three of us were probably wearing a bit of makeup right now, even though
yeah,
it's just like, and we're just free women, we just never see it, and the standards just get higher. And I think the one thing that I really wanted to kind of take a bite out of and attack a bit in You Could Be So Pretty is it's being sold to us as choice and empowerment. And that just, I was like, you know, if we never see a normal woman's face, or if we do it, it's quite jarring and everyone asks you if you're ill, it's not a choice, you know, to just go out without makeup, because you feel weird and you feel, it feels quite revolutionary. And we've just completely normalized this face, even if it's like a makeup free look, you're still wearing shed loads of makeup, or have got like a really expensive skincare regime, so it doesn't, you don't there's always so much going on behind the scenes. It costs you money, it takes up a lot of time, you know, time and money that men don't need to use and spend, and it's to make you feel crap about yourself when you look at the mirror and you see your raw face. Naomi Wolf argued this is the point, you know, we've got to make women carrying on feeling like they're not as good as to be looking at somebody else, another woman, and be like, oh, she's really pretty, and see her as a competitor rather than an ally. And it's all there to just keep us down, keep us in these really invisible small ways, so that we don't fully get equality. And I think people think beauty is this really kind of shallow thing to discuss in feminism, and also we don't like to go there because we don't want to judge somebody else's choices. And, you know, it's like you're damned if you're too pretty to be a feminist and then you're too ugly for anyone to listen to. It's this nightmare. I do think it's really important to talk about it. Sorry, that's really
no, it's fascinating.
It's such an important topic, and you know, me and Lydia have spoken so much whilst reading your book, but also, you know, outside of reading your book, you know, we've been friends for years now, me and Lydia, and you know, we've spoken about how our body image has changed and evolved over the years. And I know certainly for Lydia, since like having children and stuff, it's changed for her. But we both come from a big, like, you know, we're 90s babies. We come from like a very diet culture heavy era.
It's inspiration was like the way to be.
I was given a Weight Watchers food diary at the age of 9. Like, it's not, and that was by like my mum and my nana, and it was never, you know, it was never malicious. It was they thought they were helping me, and they thought that, you know, they were doing, you know, they thought that, you know, they were encouraging me to eat better because that was the information that they were taking in, but then what does that do to my sense of self and my body image? And, you know, it all sort of adds up. So I think it's hugely important that we talk about these things and question it. And you're so right. Like, you know, there's so many times where I don't want to turn up to work wearing makeup, but then, you know, I know that all the other women there are going to have like really nice makeup done, and they put a lot of effort into the way that they look, and like that is absolutely no shade whatsoever on them, but it's like I know that I'm not going to feel good about myself if I go in and see them with their makeup on and I've got none on. Like it's a whole thing. It's like you feel like you can never win. And I think I've especially noticed it, you know, in the last, I don't know how many months it's been, but there's been like a rise with celebrities using I don't know how you say the word, is it Ozempic? Is it the diabetic injection? And you know, you're seeing them, you know, that it's like another thing that has become popularized is this, like essentially like another diet drug. And it just feels like it is never ending. You know, we're constantly being bombarded with these, the way that we should look, the way our bodies should look, and it's just more, and you're feeling less. Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is. And yeah, it's this, I would say it's dystopic, like what we've just described, like those pressures and the never endingness of it, and how it makes you feel, and how all the other people have bought into the culture, as you said at work. You know, it's like that's how a dystopia works. It's all these people who are like, no, this is fine, and that's why I don't know how and why you free yourself. And like part of the book isn't telling you what path to choose, but it's just to like wake up. Massive problem, and it makes girls feel terrible about themselves, and it uses up so much time and energy and money. And you know, I think it is a distraction from like other, you know, feminist goals, and it's just, I just want to see like raw faces, you know, like, and that not to be a revolutionary thing, like see just what women look like, but it's been changed. Because like what women look like and girls look like is just this tiny construction of perfect bits, from eyelashes to cheekbones to nose size to eyebrow arch to lips to skin condition to hair volume. It's just, you know, it's just this collection of all these things, that parts of you that could be wrong that you need to work out. So even if you've got like great brows, you're like, oh no, but my teeth aren't white enough. It's just always something where you will fail.
100%. And I'm so grateful that you write books like this and that you explore the topics that you do. I think you are like easily one of the most important like contemporary writers, and I'm, you know, I really regret the fact that I've only read 2 of your books, but both of them have had such an impact on me. The first that I read was, is it The Places That I've Cried in Public? Is that what it's called? Oh my, I wish that I had read that when I was younger, because I cannot tell you, and I remember saying this to Lydia, my first relationship, and just a trigger warning to anybody, but my first relationship was an abusive relationship, and because it was my first relationship, I didn't understand that the way that he was treating me was wrong, and I didn't understand it until we were together for 3 years, and I didn't understand until even a couple of years after that, when I started kind of talking to people, and they'd sort of question like the things that I was coming out with and be like, what, like that happened to you, like you did that, no, that's not normal, like. And then I started to question things, and then remembering, you know, all the different things, and I remember reading your book. I only read that book, I think it was in 2020 that I read that, or 2021, anyway. It was years and years, many years after that relationship ended. And I remember reading it, and I had to like go and sit in the bath afterwards to like have a moment when I finished it, because it moved me so much. And I was like, oh my God, like that is going to go into the hands of a young girl, and she's going to know straight away when she gets into something like that they're not treating her right. And I, part of me wishes like that could have been me, and I could have read something like that and it have had the impact. But I feel really grateful that actually that book is reaching other listeners that would be in the same position that I was in, and it's going to help them a lot sooner than it helped me, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Basically, I'm really grateful that you explore the topics that you do, and I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. And I'm so sorry you went through that. Especially as you said, if it was your first relationship, you just don't think. Yeah, in that book she had a good first boyfriend, so she had that, carrying control to be like, hang on. And yeah, I can't imagine how much harder it is to leave a situation like that when you didn't have the last person I was in love with didn't make me hate myself.
Yeah.
Or I didn't. And so, I'm so sorry you went through that. But yeah, I wrote The Place That Cried in Public exactly to try and save mini you,
Yeah.
I could have been that to you, whatever age you were. And you have to try and, like educating people to what abuse really is. Because I think it's something that happens to like a mum hiding her black eye on the way to the school run. They think that's what abuse is. It's like this very like, I don't know if you would know the context of like Mo and Trevor from EastEnders and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like how emotional abuse is just as damaging, if not more damaging than physical abuse, and all these sorts of stuff. So it's strange. I do write about really dark things, but then I always tell the stories of loads of jokes and quite a natural.
No, we always say that we need to have the light with the dark. So obviously just been speaking about how it feels very dystopian, and I wanted to speak about the language that you use in the book, specific vocabulary that you kind of curated, with words and phrases such as the ranking and masks and the objectionables, the tryhards, the list kind of goes on. But I'd love to know what the influences were behind creating this specific vocabulary for your book.
I love that you asked that question because I'm so like proud of my vocabulary. It's one of like the things I'm most proud of in this book, and I think over my career was like getting that vocabulary right. And it was to make it dystopic, we needed to reword things, and then hopefully people, as they started to realize as they read the book, maybe this isn't a dystopia, like be like, that word, yeah, you're right, it is that, as it were. Sort of, so for like masks, for a full face of makeup, it is, we do paint a face on our face, and so it was coming up with each one. And obviously there is quite a lot of, if there was a glossary it would be quite long, was like a real how to get it right, really working on it, like started looking up things in Latin, like stuff I've never done, just to try and get it right. And I think there's like some of the words, like we really struggled with what to call porn, that took a really long time to land on. In the end, like we called it smut. And I quite liked invisibles for older women. It was like a thing, you became an invisible. As a 37-year-old, I'm starting to be like, oh god. So I'm like, I'm getting bumped into a lot more, especially since I became a mum. I just feel like I don't exist. So it was, the vocabulary was like the most difficult part, because you didn't want anything to jar. You didn't want anything to be a bit too on the nose. You wanted it to kind of, the vernacular to feel natural when people said it. But I think one of the ones I was also, I didn't realise this until after I read it, like after I was doing my edits, that they refer to like eating as sin, and like an exercising, I've got to like exercise off all my sin and stuff. And that's because I was referencing the beauty myth a bit, about how she talks about how beauty is like a religion now, and like models for like the chosen ones, and and how women are all trying to like glow, which I found really interesting. Like we all use like ring lights now, which I called halos in the book, and we're all trying to like be otherworldly, glowing in a stained glass window and stuff. And so I used sin, and then somebody was like, oh yeah, like in Slimming World, and I was like, what? And somebody said in Slimming World they refer to sins, and I didn't know that until after race, and I was horrified. I'm like, how is this about to like literally put eating, like like food in your body that you need to live, and like calling, like comparing it to something ungodly. It's foul, and especially as like diets have been proven by science to like not work. And if the slimming world worked, it wouldn't be a multi-million billion pounds industry where people were in it for years, because literally it's just a way to make money out of vulnerable people who that was like, that's when I had the real like, God, this really is a dystopia. This is actually happening. People are calling food sin.
Yeah.
Just what is going on? Just no concept and understanding of eating disorders. Oh, it just made me so mad. But yeah, the vocabulary was a challenge, and when to drip it into the book and trying not to overload the reader with too much vocabulary too early on, and how much do you trust the reader to understand what that means and all that sort of stuff. That was one of the real challenges of writing it, but really quite a fun challenge.
Yeah,
I think I mean, yeah, I had a very similar reaction to you when I heard about sins being part of the slimming world vocabulary, because I just couldn't understand it. And I think I was in the kitchen once with a member of my family who was like, oh, do you know how many sins are in that? And I was like, oh, what? And she knew to a T how many sins were in it, which meant, you know, I think it's like a certain amount of calories, or you're allowed a certain amount of it then. But I was just absolutely perplexed. I just couldn't understand it. And I was like, that is so dangerous, you know, because it puts you on a path of disordered eating completely. But so yeah, I remember that.
They label certain fruits with sins, which blew my mind, because it was like certain fruits are deemed bad because they've got more sugar in them, or they're like higher calories. So like a banana or something like that. And that blew my mind, because I'm like, it's literally like the most natural thing you could put into your body. And we're now saying that that's bad for you. Like, I don't understand. It's just all about shrinking us down, isn't it? It's gross.
Oh, it's so screwed up.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It really is. And I found what I found quite interesting about what you were saying about the invisibles and stuff. That's one thing that I think you really tackle excellently in this novel, is about the older women in the book and the kind of multi-generational approach you have to the book, because the girls' mothers are very, very prominent figures in the narratives, and they are completely different in a lot of ways, and yet still, I would say, quite similar. I would argue the case. But what did you want the mothers in this book to represent, or to, you know, to convey in the story?
It's weird, because normally when you write teen fiction, you just want the parents to get out of the way.
Yeah.
They're in the way of a plot going, you can't go out, isn't it already? You know, so you're always like, okay, let's send the teenagers to camp, or you know, they're away for the weekend so that the plot can occur, you know, because parents, completely limit plot if you're, you know, writing like a romance to teenagers and stuff. Because this was about beauty, I was like, I have to talk about mother-daughter relationships. And also because how, you know, that story that we see in media and fairy tales and books about an older woman resenting a beauty or fair daughter or stepdaughter, and how this woman is evil, you know, for wanting that. It's just like, makes total sense. You want to just like poison. Like, why? Because, you know, she's taking all her power. You know, it's like, the other thing, again, like when I was rereading The Beauty Myth, she sort of said is like this fear of aging, like it's disgusting for a woman to age, you know, and they do sort of vanish, and we disregard older women, because, you know, they've got wrinkles, and it's a bit pathetic if you try to look young, but you'll completely vanish from the public eye if you don't try to look young. And she was like, that's completely deliberate. Because obviously, as you're a woman, the more you're in the world, the more you learn, the more experience you have, the more power you get in your job as you work up the career ladder. And so, of course, you don't want young women to be listening to them or to take them seriously. You want to see them as like bitter and, you know, and to shudder. And what's really interesting about aging is none of us think it's coming for us. We all just think we're never gonna get old, and it's coming, you know. Like, I used to be like a smug little 24-year-old, like, God, I used to worry about my friends when I was 24, and I look at the pictures now, I'm like, what are you worrying about? And I really wanted to put that in the mother-daughter relationship and try and show, like, hopefully the younger readers like care about the mums in this book and listen to them. And you know, there's one mum who really is trying to not become an invisible and is getting all the cosmetic surgery or empowerment procedures, as I call them in the book. You know, and I think you completely understand why she does that and why she's struggling with her daughter's beauty in a kind of jealous and controlling way. And then we've got another mother who's completely rejecting it and is trying to revolutionize it. And she's just a joke. And I think, yeah, the book's all about how any choice you make about beauty, whether or not you embrace it, whether or not you reject it, it comes with consequences. And that's another reason why I feel like we're in a dystopia and that aging's it's just a scientific inevitability. And like technology is getting better at making us not look old, but a lot of those creams are just selling you actual lies. Lies. Like, you know, I think retinol, there's something to it, but like you can never go out in the freaking sun after you
want to burn? Fancy burning?
Look pretty and stay inside, older women. Makes you tell young women about how that's you will actually burn. It's just, I'm joking. It's sort of true.
It's true.
And so, yeah, it's all to do with dividing the generations. And as someone who is inevitably aging, much to my despair, it was really interesting. I remember a year before I wrote the book, it was going like viral on TikTok to take the piss out of millennial women's beauty trends. And they started going, oh, do you have a side parting? And do you wear your skinny jeans? And it was like starting to make that thing that we were the young, cool people dressing that way, you know? And I was like, oh, you're frumpy now. Oh, you're going to be really cool now. I was like, oh, God, it's beginning. And it was like, yeah, as I was hitting my mid-30s and starting to, you know, get higher up in my career. And so all the other women I know and, you know, becoming mothers, which makes you very radically feminine, like becoming radical feminist, like becoming a mum. You're like, people really need to know about
yes,
freaking staffing crisis of the NHS and maternity wards. And it's like, oh, now I'm frumpy and young girls are taking the piss out of me and therefore aren't going to listen to me when I talk. And I'm feeling resentful of them and don't like them back. And it's dividing that generation about something as petty as skinny jeans. But it's powerful. So I was like, you, Gen Z. And I was like, no, this is why I exist. This is the thing. It's here for a reason and for quite a dark reason. So I was like, I'm gonna wear my skinny jeans and my side parting. Not let you ridicule me. I've got stuff to tell you. I'm gonna write you a teenage book and you're gonna like it.
What a great plan.
Honestly, love
revenge.
I really want to talk about the perspectives that this book is told from, and we've kind of touched on them, but it's Joni and Belle. And I thought Joni was such a special character, and she has a special place in my heart. You know, she's defying the societal expectations at such a young age, and it means that her school life is then inevitably made incredibly difficult. But I felt like her strength throughout was undeniable. And, you know, as we've just been talking about their mothers, you know, her mothers clearly had a really positive impact on her in many ways. But then on the other hand, we have Belle, who is sort of a product of her environment. And, you know, underneath the surface, she's clearly struggling with it all. What was it like building those two different characters from completely different worlds and, you know, and telling the story from their sort of alternating perspectives?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was like my first real dual narrative novel. And I think it was so important to come at it from both angles, from somebody who I don't think the book would have worked if it was just Joni in this dystopian world trying to change things, you know, like Katniss Everdeen or something. Like, I think it was really important. There are so many benefits to looking pretty and to trying hard to look pretty. You know, and I wanted the character of Belle to, you know, to show that and to show what she loses as she gets to know Joni and starts wanting to maybe not follow this. And so I wanted them to learn from each other, because I think one of the real big problems with talking about beauty is to judge women who don't wear makeup, or who think that you're judging you because you do wear makeup. And again, it's that dividing us rather than uniting us.
Yeah.
And what I really, really aimed for the book, and I hope I pulled off, was there's no judgment of any of the characters' decisions. And I don't think I'm hoping nobody comes out reading the book going, well, I obviously can't wear makeup ever again, otherwise Holly Bourne's going to think I'm a crap feminist. Like, I think I'm just trying to highlight the web that we're all stuck in. Yeah. And so it was, I loved watching Belle like wake up and have her awakening. But I also like loved Joni having stuff to learn from Belle as well, when I don't think it would have occurred to her that this person might be able to change her mind. And I think also like the other like strange positives that come from beauty was like Joni works like I call it like the refuge for discarded women, you know, so like a refuge centre, and how much it meant to the women in that shelter to like be pampered and, you know, to like get their makeup done, and how they were all fighting for the beauty products, and how Joni was, I was like, what are you going to do, Joni? Told them that they're bad feminists, you know, these women who actually feel they're being brought back to themselves, because there is so much about beauty, you know, if you've got having to have chemotherapy, you lose all your hair, but, you know, you manage to get like, you know, tattooed makeup put back on, and wig that makes you feel great. Like, is that bad for me? You know, like, how dare I say that? And it's just so it's to show, yeah, I loved writing the two of them to show that there's so much to learn from each other, and it's all to do with like, how do we unite and try and unstick this mess without judgment, without telling people what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved the way that they navigated conversations together, because it's such a brilliant way of, I think, of showcasing how to talk to someone who is the polar opposite of you in many ways. They don't always get it right, but you see them start to understand how to speak to each other, how to be like, okay, I'm not going to shout and scream at you and tell you that you are wrong. I just need you to explain, because I need clarification about why you feel that way or why you've made this decision. And their conversations were just absolutely fab. Like, I really loved them. I could have listened to them talk all day. I would like to just say a big thank you to you, alongside what Hannah has already said today, which is just, this is a book that we are so grateful to have read, and also a book that I will be putting straight into my daughter's hands as soon as she is old enough to understand it, because it's so important. And just thank you for that, and thank you for coming on the podcast, because we do appreciate it.
You made me cry there. Thank you.
It's okay, you can be emotional, we cry all the time.
What can I just ask before we let you go, like, what, if you could choose anything, what would you like readers to take away from your book?
Just to realize, like, the web we're in, to realize that it's real, it's there for a reason, and to wake up to that, sort of how Belle wakes up in the book. It's just so that, you know, the next time you see a heavily filtered picture, or the next time you're putting on makeup to go to work, or all this sort of stuff, you've just got some sort of wider context of like the giant sort of conspiracies that are going on to make women feel that they have to do this, because I do feel like it's sort of like waking up from the Matrix. And it doesn't mean you initially have to make any changes, but I do think the more you're aware of it, the braver you get, and the more you start seeing it everywhere. And I am just hoping it gets people to just realise that there's just a lot of, am I allowed to swear? We're not going for it. Yeah. Okay. You should never know with a teen, but like, it's just a lot of bullshit in the concept of choice feminism. It's just fucking bullshit. And like, obviously choices are amazing. We want to fight for women to have choices, but it's just like the fact that we just can't critique these wider power structures and inequalities and capitalist agendas that are making women feel fucking shit about themselves. I feel like they have, like you said, you feel like you have no choice but to go to your place of employment where your brain is what matters. Like, but do you have to look a certain way because everyone else is pretending that their face looks a certain way? You know, it's just like, it's just calling it, it's just kind of like, this isn't empowerment, and we don't really have choice, and that's why we're all doing it. And yeah, I'm just kind of calling bullshit on that, even if some area of the internet gets mad at me, because I just, it's just pissed me off for a long time.
Let them be mad. Let them be mad. Honestly, wake up and smell the bullshit, people.
Yeah.
Please do.
You don't need your own blood injected back into your face. Like, what the fuck?
You do.
No, let's not do that. Before we let you leave, we always like to end on recommendations. So I would love to get some from you. If you have anything that you've been enjoying recently that you want to rave about, please tell us.
A book I would recommend reading that really helped me write this book was Girls and Sex by Peggy Orenstein, which is a book all about the sexual expectations on young girls. She does like really detailed interviews with young girls in America, but it translates really well and it's amazing. It's not a happy read, but it is, if you want to kind of understand hookup culture, porn culture, why girls just keep having bad sex with men they don't like very much, like it really explains it and contextualizes it in a really good way. So I would a really good YA dystopia about beauty is Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill, which is quite harrowing. But I think it won the YA Book Prize the first year that the YA Book Prize exists. So I'd like, if you want to go down the dystopic YA route for beauty, that's a really good one. I'm trying to think. And I just was a fan of I'm a Fan. Well,
those are excellent recommendations. So
amazing.
Thank you so much. And where can our listeners find you if they would like to see more from you, on social media? Have you got a website?
I am like a millennial, mainly on Instagram.
Yeah.
I can't quite cope with Twitter being X now.
No.
I don't think anyone's on it much, which is better worlds. And sometimes my publishers make me do TikTok, but I feel dead inside and sick when I post it and cringe at myself. So like, if you want to just
love that.
My worst nightmare realised, go on my fucking TikTok. I hate my life.
There's a reason why Hannah runs our TikTok and I do not, and that's because I also lose part of my soul every time I go on it.
Like that video, I've like managed to just about cope with like the fact that sometimes I have to put like a selfie up of me like holding my book like this. But like video just is awful. And he puts all this effort, like the algorithm makes no sense. He's spent like an hour trying to like work out how to make an edit that doesn't look like a clunky old woman made it. I'm not really pleased with it, and then it gets like 200 views. I'm like, oh,
don't! It drives you up the wall.
With humiliation for nothing. Now everyone can see how little people care about.
Yes. Yeah, I feel that.
Then my publisher just came and filmed me, and I'm like, "We'll just do this for you." And I'm like, "Please, God, do." Instagram is where I'm chattier and stuff. Although I can't reply to DMs, I'm sadly because of safeguarding.
I will include links to all of that in the show notes, especially. Okay, not you TikTok.
Let's snitch out. Thank
you
you
for themselves.
Listen, Holly, if I have to do it, you have to do it.
Holly, thank you so much for coming on A Pair of Bookends. It's been an absolute joy chatting to you and putting the world to rights over an evening. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for writing this book.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure. Thanks, guys. I had a great time talking about really depressing stuff with you, weirdly.
And yet we laugh.
Yes, and yet we laugh.
You laugh.
It's important. For our listeners, I will be popping a link in the show notes to You Could Be So Pretty. I've closed my book, so now I can't remember what date it's out. There we go. You Could Be So Pretty, the 28th of September, and is published by Usborne. So you can buy that for yourselves, and I highly recommend that you do. And I will also pop a link in the show notes to The Places I've Cried in Public, which I referenced earlier, which is also an amazing book of Holly's. So that is all from us. If you want to give us a follow also, you can do so at apairofbookendspod on Instagram and at apairofbookends on Twitter and TikTok. And thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.